first thing I noticed when I opened the door wasn't the overturned chair or the scattered papers all over the floor. It was a thick silence, so heavy it choked the air. No humming from the AC. No ticking from the wall clock I used to complain was always off. My name is Everly. 3 days ago I was still forcing a polite smile at a retreat in Colorado, dragged into trust-building games with coworkers I'd never seen outside of Zoom. The instructor kept repeating, "To work well together, you must first learn to trust." I almost laughed. I had trusted my husband's family, trusted them enough to hand over the house key. And now, here I was, standing in a wrecked living room, hand still on the doorknob, realizing just how wrong I'd been. The safe in the bedroom had been pried open. I rushed in on instinct, hoping something might have been spared. No cash, no expensive jewelry. What they took were letters, vintage handwritten letters from my grandmother, the woman who raised me with trembling hands and a steel heart. I kept those letters like relics, like breath, like part of me. I called Mason, my husband. 1 ring, 2 rings. Then his familiar voicemail cut in, curt. "This is Mason, leave a message." I bit my lip. "Mason? Someone broke into the house. The safe was opened. Call me back, right now," I said, trying to keep my voice from cracking. But I already knew where he was. Probably at his mother's place, like a 10-year-old crawling into her lap even though he was 35. I walked past the chaotic kitchen, gripped boxes, cabinet doors thrown wide open like someone had deliberately tried to expose every piece of my private life. My hand trembled as I touched the wooden cupboard my grandmother used to lean on every morning to make coffee. No burglar takes handwritten letters. This wasn't a robbery, it was a message. I stepped back into the living room where the late afternoon sun sliced through the crooked blinds and cast slashes across the floor like knives through memory. That's when I saw the footprint. A clear mark on the light wood. High-heeled sole, soft leather lining, the kind of shoe I had seen Chloe, Mason's sister, wear to their mother's birthday party last month. That style wasn't sold in stores, and I knew for certain the print wasn't mine. My chest began to tighten. Chloe had once kicked my sofa during an argument and left a scratch I never managed to fix. Now I understood. She hadn't just kicked furniture. She had stomped on my trust. I grabbed my phone. This time, I didn't call Mason. I texted, "Did you give your mother the house key?" Less than a minute later, the phone rang. It was Mason. "I'm at Mom's. What's going on?" I didn't answer his question. "I'll ask you one more time. Did you give her the key?" No words came, just a silence that told me everything. I gripped the phone tighter, my voice dropping low and cold. My grandmother's letters, the only things I had left, are gone. And I swear to you, if this is how your family thinks they can control me, they'll regret it. I didn't call Mason again. I called Zane. Zane was a colleague from the legal investigations department where I worked as an assistant. We weren't close, but he was the only one who had ever stood up for me when coworkers made snide remarks about my blue-collar background. A man who kept his word and didn't run his mouth. "Zane, I need your help," I said the moment he picked up. "Everly?" His voice was deep and alert. "What's going on?" I think my mother-in-law broke into my house. They took my grandmother's letters." A long pause. Then he asked, "Was he involved?" "People gave them the key?" Some names don't need to be spoken. Zane understood anyway. "Give me 10 minutes, I'll be there," he said, then hung up. I stood by the window, watching the trees tremble in the wind. In my mind, I replayed every time Helen, Mason's mother, repeated that tired refrain about the tragic history between our families. That my grandmother stole the land that should have belonged to their family. That the letters I kept were evidence of wrongs that needed to be made right. The first time she said it was right before the wedding, I thought it was just bitterness and let it slide. Zane arrived sooner than I expected. His black SUV pulled neatly in front of the house. He wore a simple gray dress shirt, no tie, his expression sharp as always, but his eyes showed concern. I led him inside. Without needing direction, he inspected the damage. When he reached the safe, his brow furrowed. They didn't force it open hard. Might have had a spare key. But a code is still needed, he said. I handed him a slip of paper I'd found in the drawer while cleaning, a receipt from a locksmith. The date on it was 3 days ago, while I was still in Colorado. They had a new key made, didn't use the old one, I said. Check the name on the order. Zane squinted. Recipient. Chloe Whitman? Mason's sister. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. She's involved too, I muttered. And someone else? Zane added, handing me his phone. I asked a neighbor who usually walks her dog past your house. She said she saw a strange man leaving with Helen yesterday. It wasn't Mason. Could she describe him? Around 50, dark suit, carrying a document bag. A chill ran down my spine. I didn't need a photo to know that was Dean Whitaker, Helen's personal attorney for the past 15 years. A seasoned manipulator once described by the local paper as the legal cleaner for this city's elite. Zane said, I'll try to pull traffic cam footage near the area. If Dean really came here, this is no longer just a family dispute. I bit back every word. The fury didn't fade, it smoldered. I reopened my inbox. The last message from Mason popped up. Don't blow this out of proportion. Mom just wanted to find some old photos. I almost laughed out loud. Old photos? Zane, I can't wait anymore. If they've already brought in Dean, they're planning something bigger, maybe a lawsuit. Maybe painting me as mentally unstable to get hold of my grandmother's documents. Then we need to act first. Do you have any home security cameras? Old ones. No remote access. But... I looked at him as an idea sparked. Do you remember that system you mentioned at the lake house? The one with motion sensors and hidden cameras? Zane nodded. I need that, I said, eyes fixed on the shattered wood beneath the safe. I want to know exactly how they got in, and next time I want evidence. The following afternoon I stepped out of the car in a long, brown knit coat buttoned tight holding a folder of receipts. The air was crisp, cold enough to contract the skin and shrink the heart by degrees. I rang Helen's doorbell with a calmness even I didn't know I had. The door opened, and Helen appeared as if she had been standing there waiting. Just like always. Hair pinned high, red lipstick without a smear, gray silk dress without a wrinkle, polished, pristine, powerful, almost artificially so. Everly, she smiled, like I was a welcome guest. Mason isn't home. That's fine, I replied, glancing past her. I came to see you. Helen raised an eyebrow but didn't move aside. Behind her, Chloe was lounging on the sofa, tea in hand, eyes indifferent. I walked in without waiting for an invitation. The house smelled of cedar and cinnamon, everything was perfectly curated. Coldly so. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a showroom. I set the folder on the glass coffee table in the center of the living room. You came to my house. Without permission. Without warning, and you took something that wasn't yours. Helen's expression didn't change. I don't know what you're referring to. I opened the folder and pulled out the receipt. This is a confirmation for a newly made key, ordered by Chloe Whitman. Date, Tuesday. When I was still in Colorado. Chloe set her tea down, her tone flat. The key was for Mom. That house is Mason's too. She has a right to enter. I turned to her, my gaze no longer calm. Breaking into a safe isn't just wrong. It's a violation, and tearing through my private life, that crosses a line you can't uncross, and absolutely no one has the right to take my grandmother's letters. Helen still smiled, but I saw her hand gripping the spoon, just a little tighter. You're being overly sensitive. I was just looking for some old family photos, things that should be with family. You mean with Chloe? I glanced at my sister-in-law, who hadn't once checked in on me in the 3 years I'd been married into their family. Or with you, the woman who always believed my grandmother stole land from yours? Helen inhaled sharply, as if the cracks in her mask had started to show. History deserves clarity, Everly, and those letters may contain information important to us. I gave a soft chuckle and reached into my coat pocket, pulling out a thin envelope. You're worried you took the originals, aren't you? I raised an eyebrow. What you took was a copy, printed by me. The originals were never kept in that house. Chloe blinked, then turned to her mother. Mom, are you sure they were real? Helen glanced at her daughter. She tried to mask it, but I saw it, just a flicker of panic in her eyes. I stepped closer. The thing is, you know I'm not that careless. You also know that when I value something I never leave it unprotected. Helen rose slowly, but her usual grace faltered. A fracture had formed beneath the surface. You're accusing us because you've lost control of your marriage. Mason said you're unstable. I cut her off. What Mason says doesn't matter anymore. I'm not here to beg. I'm here to warn. I placed the other thin envelope on the table. Not letters, but high-resolution images from the locksmith's camera. Chloe's face. Her signature on the receipt. I haven't sent this to the police yet, but you should know. If you step into my space one more time, I won't stay quiet. Helen held her tongue, jaw tight. Chloe dropped her gaze, the weight of the moment finally silencing her. I turned, walked to the door, then paused with my hand on the knob. Oh, and one more thing, I said without looking back. I'm installing a new security system, every step, every breath inside my house. It'll all be recorded. 3 days later, my house was fortified like a fortress, but no one would have known from the outside. Zane brought in the new security gear from the lake house where he had once tested the setup. Hidden cameras, motion sensors, audio mics tucked behind outlets and beneath the fireplace. Every data stream was fed directly to my phone, encrypted and accessible only by 2 people, me and Zane. This is a test recording, he said, showing me the footage from a hidden camera in my home office. High resolution, clear audio. If anyone sneaks in again, we'll have everything. I held the phone tightly like it was a weapon. But I hadn't told Zane everything. I had another move. During my last visit to Helen's house, I had secretly slipped a fingernail-sized listening device into the side pocket of her purse. I wasn't sure it would work. But just hours later, my phone started picking up a signal. When I played the first recording, the sounds from Helen's house came through, chillingly clear. Bubbling water, clinking dishes, then voices. Undeniable. We have to find the Crosswell documents. It was Helen, her voice sharp as a blade. Mom, that was over 40 years ago, Chloe, annoyed. Who even cares anymore? The lawyer says if it gets out, the Whitman name won't survive on the city council. My chest tightened. Crosswell. It was a name I had only heard once. From my grandmother when I was 15, groggy from her knee surgery. No one can know about Crosswell. They won't spare you. I used to think it was a dream, but it wasn't. Helen was talking about it, and clearly she believed I had a copy of something linked to it. I played the next recording from the following day. Mason's too weak, Helen said. He always softens. If she finds Crosswell and leaks it to the press, everything will collapse. We'll make her stay quiet, Chloe cut in. She wants peace, right? Then threaten what she loves most. That night, while updating case files, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Crosswell documents. Noon tomorrow. West Bench, Greenhill Park. Come alone. If not, Mason will learn everything. And we won't be responsible for what happens. I reread the message several times but didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to Zane with a short note. Do you think their lawyer, Dean Whitaker, is involved? Zane called me immediately. He's the only one who's ever handled Crosswell for the Whitmans. If that file is serious enough to ruin Helen's political career, then yes, Dean has every reason to shut you down. I walked to the window, watching the warm porch lights flicker across the railing. A ripple in my chest. I'll go to the park. But I won't go alone. Zane didn't ask questions. I'll go ahead, watch from a distance. And you, stay calm. Don't let them touch anything you bring. I'm not bringing anything, just one thing, the truth. Zane was quiet, then asked softly, Aren't you scared? I thought of Helen's eyes when I told her the letters were copies. They held no pride, just the panic of someone losing control. I used to fear the quiet, but not anymore. Not when I've seen what real darkness looks like. I arrived at Tannersfield Park right on time. The air was crisp, sunlight soft over winding trails by the lake. Mason was already seated on the wooden bench. He wore a light jacket, hands clasped tightly, looking like a man awaiting a verdict. I didn't greet him, just sat down. A space between us, like the way we'd lived under one roof for months. I opened my bag, took out a thick envelope, and placed it in his hand. You should see this. Mason opened the envelope, pulled out the pages. Copies of the Croswell documents. Legal records buried for over 4 decades. Numbers, testimonies, seals, and the signature of his grandfather. It's all real, I said. Not speculation, not family gossip. Every word is backed by records. He reached the 3rd page, his hand froze. My grandfather forced the transfer? He used his influence and threatened to revoke her operating permit until my grandmother signed away the land. The wind swept across the lake. Neither of us spoke. The weight of truth hung between us like fog. She kept this buried her entire life, I continued. Not out of fear, but because she knew, if the truth came out, our family would never find peace with your mother. Mason folded the file, his eyes still on it. I didn't know any of this, Everly. I know, I said. But you knew other things, and you stayed silent. Mason looked up. You're angry I didn't take your side? I looked him straight in the eyes. Not for not choosing me, but for always choosing her when she barged into our home, when she had someone ransack the safe, when she insulted me. Right in front of you. You said nothing, and sometimes silence is complicity. He leaned forward. You don't understand. My mom had a reason to be afraid. She said if you touched anything related to Croswell, she'd submit your therapy records to the court. Back when you just graduated, you went through a few sessions. Because of work pressure. Because of insomnia. I went still. She said if you tried to sue, she'd use that to prove you were unstable, to gain control of the house, frame you as a legal threat to the family assets. And you went along with that? He looked down, words caught somewhere he'd never speak. I got to my feet, not waiting any longer. I'm not afraid of your mother, I said slowly. I just regret that after 3 years of loving someone, when I needed him to protect me the most, he stepped back. Everly, I'm sorry, he called out. I'll talk to her, No need, I cut him off, because this morning, I filed for divorce. My attorney will send you a copy this afternoon. Mason froze. You can't? I already did. I met his eyes. Once more, and never again. I used to believe you'd stand by me. But it turns out, I was alone all along. I turned to leave. Everly, he called after me, stepping forward. But no further. That same familiar hesitation, one I no longer had the patience to forgive. Friday, exactly 10 a.m. I sat in my car parked half a block from the house, eyes locked on my phone screen. The hidden surveillance system worked flawlessly. Crystal clear visuals, pristine audio. Every doorway, every room corner was under watch. The familiar silver SUV appeared first. Helen stepped out, cashmere coat, hair pinned tight, face set like she was headed to a city council meeting. Chloe followed, holding a black leather bag, strolling like she was heading to a weekend spa. And then, Morton. Their attorney, with his briefcase in tow. I had guessed right. They came to settle the matter. The front door opened. Ryan. I saw him exchange a few words with his mother, then pull the key from his coat pocket. The original key, not a copy. My hand clenched the strap of my bag. He still let them in. Even after learning the truth? Even after I handed him the Croswell files myself? They walked in like they owned the place. Morton went first, caught on camera, saying, "We've got 20 minutes, grab anything that could jeopardize her claim to the property." Helen led the way, no hesitation. Living room. Bedroom. Home office. Finally, she stopped in front of the wall where the safe was hidden. Chloe crouched down, began removing the false panel I had planted. An empty compartment designed for them to find. Ryan hovered a step behind them, shoulders rigid, jaw clenched, when Morton turned and asked, "The recess behind it? Your mother said there's a hidden compartment there." He hesitated. "It's nothing important." Helen turned, voice cold as steel. "Open it. Let the attorney check." Ryan's jaw tightened. "I don't think this is the right way to do things." Morton stepped in. "We're not breaking any laws. This is marital property. We're exercising Helen's legal rights. I saw Helen lower her voice, but her expression betrayed her impatience. She knew if they didn't find proof, everything would collapse. Ryan exhaled, raised his hand, then paused before touching the wall. No, he said. Ryan, Helen snapped, losing composure for the first time. Don't tell me you're getting soft over her again. She's my wife, he replied. You need to stop. Chloe cut in, mocking. Too late, big brother. If you're choosing her side, then step aside. Don't slow us down. I didn't wait another second. I opened the car door and walked quickly toward the house. I entered through the back. The sound of my footsteps on the floor made everyone whip around. Helen froze, her hand still on the drawer she'd just opened. I looked straight at them and said clearly, "Hello, everyone. Still comfortable walking into my house without knocking, I see?" Helen straightened, forcing a smile. "Everly, we were just—" "I know what you're doing," I cut her off. "And I have full footage, from the moment you stepped through the door." Chloe glanced at Morton, who was fumbling to close his briefcase, eyes darting around like he was looking for an escape route. "What were you hoping to find?" I walked to the safe. "Letters? Or the Crosswell documents?" I opened the real hidden compartment behind the safe, where I'd placed a different file. Helen lunged forward, trembling fingers flipping through the pages. But instead of letters, she found financial reports, bank statements, hidden transactions under the name of the charitable foundation Helen headed, and regular quarterly transfers to a private account under her name at a bank in Florida. "Alex," Helen stepped back. You set me up." "No," I said calmly. "I just kept what I needed to protect myself. You walked straight into your own trap." Morton whispered something to Helen, then quickly made his way to the back door. "We didn't do anything illegal," Chloe began, but I raised my phone. "I don't need to argue. Everything's recorded, visuals, audio, time-stamped. You entered without consent, trespassed on private property, and now you're caught with proof of embezzlement." I turned to Ryan. "Still standing behind them? Or are you finally ready to stand for something else?" He lowered his head. Helen gave a bitter smile. "This isn't over, Everly." "I know, but next time you won't be free to walk into my home." My new apartment sits on the 5th floor, overlooking a small square where a violinist often plays in the early mornings. It's not big or fancy, but every corner bears my mark. Canvas frames near the window, a stack of old books my grandmother used to read, and the soft scent of lavender oil drifting through each night. I no longer need high-tech locks or cameras in every room. I don't triple-check the windows before bed. I'm no longer living in defense. I'm living to breathe. That morning, just as I was making coffee, there was a knock at the door. 3 quick taps, 1 slow one. A rhythm that used to melt my heart. I opened the door and there stood Mason, holding a bundle of old parchment tied with an ivory ribbon. "I was clearing out Mom's office," he said. "Found this in the bottom drawer." I stared at it, aged paper, familiar ribbon, and felt the air catch in my lungs. Aged paper, slanted handwriting, the original letters. Words my grandmother had written by hand, from memory, from flesh and blood. "They belong to you," Mason said, eyes slightly red. "You don't have to forgive me." But I wanted to give back at least one thing that was right. I took the bundle. I didn't thank him. I didn't blame him. A part of me had let go a long time ago. "Are you doing better?" he asked. My eyes found his, the face I used to wake up beside, now barely familiar. Once believed would walk beside me for life, now standing like an old song, not off key, just no longer mine. "Much better," I replied softly. "I don't dream of being trapped in a house with doors that won't open anymore." He didn't try to say more, he just placed a small envelope on the doorstep and left. Inside was a signed copy of the motion to end the property dispute. He had finally chosen the truth, but now that it was over, all I felt was relief. No regret. That night I opened one of my grandmother's letters, the one she wrote 3 weeks before she passed, her handwriting slightly shaky. "My dearest Everly, there are people who spend their whole lives just trying to win. But you don't have to beat them. You only have to overcome yourself. Overcome the anger, the pain, and the urge to strike back. The greatest victory is sometimes just refusing to play their game. Love. Grandma. I folded the letter and placed it next to my jar of paintbrushes. 2 days later, Zane knocked on the door, holding 2 sandwich boxes and 2 cans of lemonade. I wasn't sure if inviting you out to lunch would be too soon, so... I brought lunch here, he said with a shy smile. I laughed. If there's grilled cheese, I'll forgive you. There is, and banana bread too. We ate by the window, noon sunlight spilling across his shoulder. No tension, no expectations, just presence, a true friendship. No claims, no need to prove anything. After lunch, Zane glanced at the unfinished painting on my easel. Are you submitting that to ArtLink? I froze. How did he know? I heard the gallery assistant say you were invited. The world needs to see your colors, Everly. My eyes settled on the canvas. Faded gray, streaks of violet, wounds and healing in color. Faded gray beneath streaks of violet, still incomplete lines. Maybe I will, I said. Night fell. I stood alone in my apartment. Soft wind brushing in from the balcony, carrying the scent of pine from a distant park. The city was no longer where I ran from. It was where I rebuilt my life. Detail by detail, breath by breath. My phone buzzed, an email from the gallery. Confirmation, no longer silent, will be exhibited in next month's Rebirth showcase. I sat down, hand resting on my grandmother's letters. Finally, I understood. It wasn't exposing Helen that made it over. It wasn't reclaiming recognition from Mason that meant victory. It was this. Sitting here, alone, in peace, and knowing I had chosen myself. Everly's story isn't just about escaping the grip of a manipulative in-law family. It's proof of the quiet strength that comes from clarity and self-worth. Amid lies, threats, and betrayal, she didn't fight back with rage or revenge, but with calm resolve and faith in truth. In real life, sometimes victory isn't about taking someone down. It's about standing up, walking away, and never letting anyone else define your worth again. What do you think about Everly's choice? Was she too firm? Or was it the only way to save herself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family and life.